Hello and welcome to Islamic Finance Weekly. I am Rahma Sayyid Muhammad. As you already know, or if you're just joining us for the first time, the theme this month is non-interest finance and entrepreneurs. How non-interest finance can support enterprise development. So last week we were out on the streets engaging people to tell us their experiences with microfinance companies and, the loan companies, and sharing with us those traumatic experiences. So today we're bringing in a professional, none other than Basirat Adebiyi, the senior investment analyst with Cowrywise, to share with us her professional perspective on this issue. Thank you so much for having us, Basirat.
Thank you for having me as well.
Thank you so much for doing this with us. So let's delve right into the conversation today. How does non-interest finance, practically differ from the conventional financing when it comes to supporting entrepreneurs, especially the SMEs?
Based off when an SME wants to get like a loan, they want to expand their business, or they want to just, stock up inventories, right? The step is to go to a bank, and the bank will have to ask a lot of questions around, oh, what's your credit history? How is your operations? Okay, you need to get like a collateral. If you're collecting 10 million, then you have to drop something. Let's see, just in case you're not unable to pay back, right? So that's typically how the traditional setting works. But when it comes to non-interest finance, it's quite different because we're leveraging based off the reality of what an economic activity in a business entails. Sometimes you could, obviously in the beginning of the year, you have like a budget, you have your plan, but then, inflation, rising cost of things, a lot of things could happen to a business, right? So sometimes when you take a loan, you might end up not being able to pay back conveniently. So for non-interest financing is usually bridging that gap by offering alternative. An example is a cost plus financing, right? So a business owner comes to me and say, oh, I want to expand. I'm currently using a manual approach to produce. Now I want to get like an equipment, a machine that would help me produce faster, So I could recommend that, okay, you know what, we could do a Mudarabah app for you. So it's called cost plus financing. The financier would purchase the equipment for you and then give it to you at a markup, just so I can get profit. So say I purchase it 10 million, I can have maybe a 1 million profit or a 300,000 profit and then give it to you. So I give you the time to be able to pay me back in instrumental payments, method. And then as your business is going, you're able to pay back. And at the end of the day, once you're done paying, you own the equipment, right? So this is an alternative that, Islamic financing and non-interest financing is actually bridging that gap. That way, I'm being fair to you. You don't have to go and borrow extra money just to be able to pay me back. So non-interest financing definitely provides that alternative that would help a business scale.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That laid the ground for me to ask the next question. Let's talk about tenets like Mudarabah and Musharakah, which are basically joint partnership models. How can these models or instruments support enterprise development in today's business environment?
Okay. So those instruments, they are like very popular in the non-interest finance space because we have like a number of investment bank or Sharia-compliant investment bank that are developing that. So what this simply means that, let me start with the Mudarabah. So that one entails like a silent partnership. I have a business idea. I'm a startup. I'm trying to get funding. And then I go to an investment bank. Okay, these are my options. I need you to invest in me. Or I need you to structure something that would work for me. So I coming to meet you, I am the expertise. I have the knowledge. I have the business idea. And then the financier is the investment banker or, investors that wants to invest in the business, right? So they stay silent in that such that I am able to utilize the funds properly and then ensure that my business is growing. So they typically have like a PLS, a profit and loss sharing formula, where everybody's aware that, okay, I am making good profits. Based off that, an agreed ratio, we're going to share that profit. Or in a case where there's a loss, as long as it's not intentional, because some people can, just take advantage of that. As long as it's not a misconduct or fraudulent, a loss sharing formula can also apply, and it really helps in an economy that is unpredictable.
Right.
You don't know if you're taking a loan, for instance, you don't know if you're going to be able to pay back. That's not what you plan, but I mean, it end up being what it is. So the partnership setting that Mudarabah offers is really great. So Musharakah is alike. The only difference is it's like a joint venture. So typically, a very capital intensive project, say I have, you know, a land, or I'm trying to build an estate, and then I'm buying a unit of the land, but I need other people to also buy. Obviously, other professionals, developers, or, you know, architects, you know, they could come in and say, okay, I am going to buy this, I'm going to buy that. That way, it's make it easier for me to be able to get, you know, or develop the estate that I'm working on.
Yeah.
So it just provides a much more structured way, realistically, because you know that for this business, it's very capital intensive. If you're to go to a bank, man, your collateral has to be high, you know, and if you don't have that asset, you'll be at a disadvantage. So for the Musharaka, other partners in the structure would come together. They also offer like a joint ratio in terms of like profit and loss sharing. So, but then it's usually a win-win, and I would recommend, if you're an SME, you know, look for other people that are in line with your business. You know, you're trying to you're working on a project, reach out to them, and, you know, can go to an investment bank, a Sharia compliant investment bank. So get a financial advisor. They will direct you on how to go about this. And a Sharia advisor is usually, so just to check that the structure is in place. Well, you know, they would advise that, okay, Sharia advisor would come in and check what structure, so that everybody is good.
Yeah, so absolutely fantastic. Talking about all of these hurdles, talking about all these challenges that SMEs or like regular people face with, you know, microfinance or loan companies, all of these hurdles. I mean, like when we did the Vox Pop last week, a lot of people decried like the emotional trauma.
I saw it.
Yes, the emotional trauma that comes along with. I mean, we had a lot of people reach out to us after that Vox Pop to ask us, how can they access non-interest finance loans? How can they, you know, talk to these people to support businesses and build, you know, something significant? So talking about this, how can entrepreneurs have access to, you know, non-interest finance to breach that challenge that they face? Now, talking about all of those instruments now in the broader picture, how can they easily access this?
I think the misconception that people usually have about non-interest is it is complex, but it is not. It is not, and also because it's still a growing, you know, sector in Nigeria, and so a number of people are just hearing about it. But it's a very good alternative for your business, right? So, one of the things that I would recommend that an investment bank do, a Sharia compliant investment bank should do, is increase the accessibility such that you can leverage technology, leverage fintech. You know, when you're going on the way, you see a billboard, someone will tell you, come and borrow 10 million, you get, you know, instantly, and then they'll give you a ridiculous rate. But because you're very pressured and because you're desperate, you go for it. If we had more awareness, more advertisement, marketing around non-interest finance as a better alternative, right? It will really help bridge that gap, to be honest. And also another thing is education. I would recommend that, you know, investment banks should educate people and say, oh, please come in, we have structures for you. Everything doesn't have to be like a sukuk bond or like you're a big corporate. You could do like a cost plus financing, which is what most banks do. So a number of people could go there, as long as you have a viable business. You know, go to those banks, and then, you know, they would have something that would help you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, we've talked about the people, we've talked about the banks. Now let's talk about the policymakers and the regulators. How can they, you know, make financial institutions, I mean the non-interest finance institutions, thrive better, especially in this economy?
There's a regular workshop that like SEC and NGX usually do. I would recommend that, you know, NGX in collaboration with SEC and even CBN for banks as well do more education regarding this, so that investment bankers or SMEs would understand that, okay, it's easier to get access to these things. Another thing is for them to make sure that the process is lenient,
right?
Because sometimes, because of due diligence, which is very important, you know, the process can be a bit cumbersome. So if they can make it less, make it more lenient for people, so that it will just encourage, oh, it's very easy for me to access. So obviously SEC already has like a role guiding businesses that want to raise money, right, through non-interest financial instruments. So there are guidelines already for that. I would just say that the process should be very convenient, so that it will be easier and very encouraging to.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Now, to round up the conversation today,
Yes.
let's talk about ESG and non-interest finance. I mean, oftentimes people say that's similar. That's like one.
Yeah.
So, like, how can non-interest finance, what role do you see non-interest finance playing in driving sustainable development and ESG compliance for entrepreneurs?
Okay. To me, I actually agree with that, because I feel like they are both. Non-interest finance is around the principles of justice, equality, and fairness, transparency, which is very important, so that both parties will know what's going on. So a number of instruments that I've looked at, non-interest instruments that I've looked at, typically revolves around agriculture, healthcare, renewable energy. So a number of investment banks are very interested in pushing those, companies that's their core out in the market. So they have like a number of non-interest instruments in the market, which is really, really great. So I think the idea of, marketing more of ESG should just be more. I think a number of people don't really know that they're aligned, because in my opinion, non-interest financing has to do with socially responsible investing. Like, I'm not going to cheat you. If you come to me and say, okay, you want to raise money, I'll do something that will be fair, such that, if there are losses, we could share. And also if there are profits, it's a win-win for both parties.
Absolutely.
So
fantastic. Thank you so much, Basirat. That's a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this. I hope we could do more of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic conversation we've had today with Basirat Adebiyi, sharing with us her knowledge from her circle, telling us how the entrepreneurs can access financing without hurdles or emotional trauma, and how regulators and policymakers can make the system for financial institutions, non-interest financial institutions, seamless, and how non-interest finance is open to every single one of you. Well, with that, I would say don't forget to keep it safe with us next week on the program. Follow us on all of our social media platforms displayed on the screen. Thank you for watching, and as always, I am Rahma Say Muhammad.